So, great. Welcome, everybody, to our event, Empowering Women to Become Active Stakeholders in Tackling Summertime Energy Poverty, which takes place within the online European Sustainable Energy Week 23 program and is organized also within the two programs, Empower Meet and Cool to Rise. Let's start very quickly with some important housekeeping rules before we dive into our very important topic. So welcome to you, to our panelists, to the participants, to the online participants. So the event will be recorded and shared afterwards on the EUSEW platform. And we have technical support is provided by Alfonso and his team. You will find the email in the chat in the case you face technical issues, so do not hesitate to contact him. We have support here. Thank you so much. We have consecutive translation, English, Spanish, English for some inputs and parts of the discussion, just to let you know in advance. And we will use Slido for interactive sessions and the Q&A session. We will also share the link in between of Slido and also the password. It means so you can put here your input. You can here include your question. You can also rank the questions here. Okay, let's start with our session. Welcome again. My name is Katharina Habersbrunner. I'm your facilitator of our today's session today here. And I am a board member at WCF, Women Engaged for a Common Future. It's an international NGO and we work on climate and gender justice and a just energy transition. We are partner in the Horizon project Empower Meet, where we work, for example, with Monica, Lydia and Valbona on concrete activities and policy recommendations to face energy poverty, which we will share today. I'm also a board member of Bündnis Bürgerenergie. It's an umbrella organization of energy communities in Germany. And here we experience at the moment that energy community can be a very important vehicle framework to face energy poverty. So that's more or less here our housekeeping rules. Yeah, our topic, summertime energy poverty and empowerment of women. So what we see at the moment, we see still very high energy prices. We see high inflation. And of course, we see this link in between that energy prices are the trigger of higher costs of living. What we have experienced very obviously last year, and we still see higher energy prices at the moment than, for example, before the war in Ukraine. We know that the burden of high energy prices and of being affected by energy poverty is not evenly distributed across the population. So in most European countries, the average energy burden, so the proportion of the income spent on domestic energy services, is about twice as high for the poorest 20% than for the richest 20%. Also, the richest 20%, what we know, are consuming considerably more energy. And the very high energy costs are hitting the vulnerable households and citizens the hardest. And in the last year, we have seen many instruments and measures to face energy poverty, addressing the topic. So we talked about a lot last August, September, October, how to face the next winter. At the moment, also we see a lot of discussion how to face the next winter, but it's very important to talk about summertime energy poverty, to include it more in the activities and also in research, because 1 in 5 European households, they can't keep their dwelling comfortably cool in the summer. With increasing temperatures and heat waves, the situation we know is likely to become even worse. And I guess also today in your countries, many of you have high temperatures. So in Germany, we have in some regions 35 degrees, which is unusual and also lacking rain for 6 weeks. So, and I guess it's reported in Spain, in the peninsula, it's in the Iberian Peninsula, it's even worse. And it will remain for some days or at least for some weeks. So we are already affected, nearly everybody. And next topic also, deeply rooted inequalities, for example, like the pay or gender pension gaps, lower ownerships of dwellings or social roles, lead women to being more prone to summertime energy poverty than men or other social groups, for example. And results and analysis of Empower-Mid project actions shows that women lack representation and also decision-making power when it comes to energy. So it's still a super masculine and male-dominated sector. It's very important to include gender issues, to include social issues in directives, for example, in frameworks. And it shows that women are more likely to have mental and health problems due to summertime and overall energy poverty. That shows that women are more affected, but women are also agents of change and active stakeholders. And we see examples today. Women are defenders on the right to energy in their homes and in their community. They are strong community players. So we know in many examples that women have a say on local level. And this needs to be strengthened and upscaled to all levels. Yeah, so it shows that summer energy poverty is also a big issue of inequality. How can we be prepared? How can vulnerable households be prepared? All citizens, the cities and municipalities for heat waves, for example, to have a good living in the cities in all regions and also to have structures in place. This means that discussing about energy poverty, understanding energy poverty is very important and crucial to implement actions and also to develop and implement policies to tackle the problem. And this is a topic of our today's session, empowering women to become active stakeholders in tackling summertime energy poverty. So that was a short intro. And before we start with our input and before I introduce our great panelists, we have a very short Slido where we ask you to answer the question where you put in your ideas. I guess Slido is shown, so please use the hashtag for Slido. And the question is, what do you think when you hear summertime energy poverty? So please use Slido. I hope it works. I guess it works. And put in your ideas, your answers, your proposals. What do you think when you hear summertime energy poverty? So we will wait for 1 minute and then we will show the results, which will be in the format of a word cloud. So I hope it's running well. So yep. Let's wait for some more seconds. So that's great. Here we see first questions. So it's lack of cooling equipment. So I have to admit, maybe I can't see the other answers because it's too small and I couldn't get into Slido. So maybe it could be shared as big slide on screen. Okay, thank you very much. Great, so we see here very obvious lack of cooling equipment, which is we experience all. That's where you have a common understanding, but also it refers to South Europe. That was, for example, also a focus, one part of the focus of Empower-Mid, the Mediterranean regions. A non-integrated market, so addressing the energy market, higher energy bills because of a higher demand of energy, European disparities. Yes, that's very good point. No air conditioning, heat. Yeah, thank you very much for your input here. Yeah, great. Thank you very much. Now we talk and discuss about this topic, and I'm very happy to welcome you, our panelists. So we have very experienced panelists, and they will address the topic from very different perspectives. And I will introduce each panelist directly before the input. And we start with Monica. Monica Guterres. Monica is working at Engineer Without Borders in Catalonia. She is an energy and gender expert. She is also a member of the Alliance Against Energy Poverty and its collective advisory assemblies on energy poverty. And she is a partner in the Empower Me project and implementing various activities to improve the situation of energy poverty. Monica gives a presentation on energy poverty, summer health, and gender impacts. Monica, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. We are very happy to be part of today's session. Also very happy that we have all women panel today. And my presentation would also talk about a little bit on gender aspects, but I'll start on sharing with you the context of Barcelona pilot site, which is one of the pilot sites we have had in Empowerment project in the last almost 4 years. The particularities of Barcelona context are similar than other Mediterranean cities. We have had a steady increase in energy prices, but also the liberalized and privatized market that Spain has more strongly than other countries, and with very concentrated percentage of the generation and commercialization of energy has an impact on also this situation of the increase in prices. We also have an old and energy inefficient housing stock, and also particular architecture or urbanism forms that cause what we call a heat island effect in several areas of the city. There's also a greater socioeconomic inequalities in cities like Barcelona, and also precarious jobs, some of them related to sectors like tourism and hotels, etc. We also have socio-demographic density and complexity, and higher population that is in a situation of anonymity. No? It's very difficult for some people to, for example, access social services or other mutual support resources. And of course, we have more and more each time with the climate emergency we live in, we have more heat waves and extreme weather. What we also have at the Barcelona metropolitan area level and also Catalonia level is that we have the law 24/2015, which is a law that is banning disconnections, that helps us a lot to defend the right to energy. We also have energy advisory points at municipal level, and we also have social mobilization in trying to fight for basic supplies like energy and water, and Mari Carmen, today present here, is an example of that that we'll be speaking later. What we have also seen, what we call like the summer energy poverty, that I can compare with the data we have on Barcelona and the public agency of Barcelona, like Public Health Agency of Barcelona. And there's a difference between the people that is not able to have an adequate temperature in the cold months, which is a little bit more than 9%. But for the hot months, people that can't have an adequate temperature is 11.4. So it's higher in the hot months than in the cold months, this situation of being unable to maintain an adequate temperature. Of course, we also have higher percentage of people affected in other indicators, like having arrears in utility bills. In that case, Barcelona area is around 40% of the 14 14% of the population unable to cope with bills and having some arrears. And what we have on terms of health impacts is that for people suffering from energy poverty, the impacts on health are like they have twice the risk to have these health impacts than those who aren't in a situation of energy poverty. Also, gender has a big impact here, and for people in situation of energy poverty who are women, those who report poor self-reported health is almost 50% of the women, which is a lot, and that is a very urgent matter that we need to address. That is why we have created what we call the Mutual Support Group, which is a form of health workshop during the Empowerment project in Barcelona and metropolitan area. This Mutual Support Health workshop is a space that was created because we saw there was a need for stopping the victimization and blaming, and besides doing the collective advisory assemblies, we saw that another space, more private, more secure space was needed. So physical and mental health impacts could be discussed with a small group. So we created this network, this space that can act on the urgencies, but also can act in the long term in a way that each affected people taking part in this space can help each other, and they talk to each other as peer-to-peer. No? There's no expert, there's no inequalities, and this has proved to be an amazing tool for affected people by energy poverty. Also, there has been a majority of women attending this mutual support group on health impacts, and there's also a non-mixed group of Telegram, let's say, like of messages for those aspects in which women part of this group want to share sensitive information and can do that with a group of only women. And that I also think that is something to be underlined. And deep energy poverty impacts have been discussed in this group. And as I said before, not only winter energy poverty, but summer energy poverty. And we accompany this with also trainings and discussions so that we can nourish the information and the resources available for affected people to have more tools to discuss and understand that it is our right to have dignified energy services. In these initiatives, we have also had like very difficult situations arise, like solitude, indignity, feelings, illnesses, also gender violence, discomforts regarding closest people. So not only what happens to me, but what happens to my family, to my circle of loved ones.
One more minute, Monica.
Perfect.
Sorry.
And to add to that, I would say that the gender aspect has always been very present, and health and gender are intertwined in a very profound way, because more precariousness requires more care work, and care work is in a majority still done by women. So when a situation of energy poverty is out there or worsens, it's probably going to be women who are going to fight to improve that. So that needs to be recognized, but also is a common and collective responsibility of our society. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monica, for sharing the examples, so for stressing, for example, concepts like the safe space, which is so important. So mutual support, and that's a good news that we have measures, we have approaches working, and also including health and gender aspects when improving the situation for energy poverty. Thank you so much. Yeah, we go ahead with our next input. So we welcome Mari Carmen Gomez from Barcelona. Very welcome, Mari Carmen, also Brian. Mari Carmen lives in Barcelona, and you will share your personal experience of being affected by energy poverty. And you are also engaged to face energy poverty in the Alliance Against Energy Poverty of Catalonia. And here you actively collaborate in meetings, mutual support for vulnerable families, and you participate in public protest actions. So we are very happy to have you here. And we are very happy that you share your personal experiences, lived experience of energy poverty. So Mari Carmen and Brian, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutos, ok, gracias. Bueno, ¿qué puedo añadir a lo que ha dicho Mónica? Es que lo ha explicado a la perfección, evidentemente. Puedo hablaros desde el punto de vista como afectada, que llevo formando parte de esta gran familia que es la Alianza contra la Pobreza Energética desde el 2016, que la compañía Naturgy me privó del suministro de la luz. Y bueno, a partir de ahí, en ese momento sentí muchísima soledad, muchísima impotencia, miedo, estaba completamente sola, perdida y no sabía dónde acudir, no sabía qué hacer. Pero gracias a la Alianza contra la Pobreza Energética me pude empoderar y pude conocer mis derechos, ¿no? Y esto es lo que estamos haciendo desde que se aprobó en Cataluña la Ley 24/2015, que prohíbe el corte de los suministros, voy muy rápido, a las familias vulnerables. Pues lo que hacemos en los asesoramientos de APE es empoderar a todas las personas, pero que mayoritariamente somos mujeres las que formamos parte de este movimiento, ¿no? Es un movimiento, como ya he dicho, formado la gran mayoría por mujeres. También hay una gran mayoría de mujeres migrantes en las que, pues, visibilizando las dinámicas globales y las cadenas globales de cuidado, ¿no?
Vale. Sí, that's cool. Okay, thank you. Monica's explained it very well. I'm one of the people affected by energy poverty. I'm a member of the Alliance Against Energy Poverty in Catalonia. In 2016, I was affected because they cut off my electricity, and this was very difficult for me. It was very, very hard I felt very alone. I felt very sad, and it was hard for me to recover until I found the Alliance Against Energy Poverty, and we were working hard. Since we were able to get the law to protect people in energy poverty, the law 24/2015. The APE has been empowering people in these situations. It's mainly formed by women, and there's a high immigrant population as well. So this will, you know, it's very important to us to have this group that's supporting us.
Okay. Vemos en los asesoramientos de APE que las mujeres seguimos siendo, ¿no?, las que llevamos el peso de la casa, las que llevamos el cuidado, las que hacemos malabarismos para poder llegar a final de mes, para que no falte comida en la nevera, para que nuestros hijos tengan ropa, para pagar los suministros, para pagar el alquiler. O sea, somos las que nos rompemos la cabeza para que todo esto pues no se venga abajo, ¿no? Y vemos que no hay esta carga que tenemos no está igualada, ¿no? Siempre es la mujer la que tiene que desempeñar este papel, ¿no? ¿Por qué? Pues no lo sé, quizás porque por el hecho de ser mujer, cuando nacemos ya se nos asigna este papel y parece ser que es el único que podemos desempeñar, cuando es obvio y evidente de que ya a la vista está de que sí que podemos desempeñar papeles importantes y que podemos desarrollarnos como personas, como seres humanos, ¿no? Y que tenemos otras inquietudes y que podemos aportar muchísimas cosas. En algunos casos... ¿Paro?
Sí. Okay, so in the when we have our the assessment where people can come in and tell their stories and get support, the support sessions, we see that women are the ones. They're in the house. They're doing a lot of juggling to keep the children fed, to pay their bills, and it's very tricky. They're putting the kids into bed and things like that. And we ask ourselves why this inequality is always present. Maybe it's just because our fate as women, because of the way we're born, but we're also we as women we have other interests, we have other things we want to do with our lives, and so we want to change the situation.
Vale. Bueno, vemos que hay un gran número de mujeres monomarentales también, ¿no? Que madres que pues que tienen que cuidar de sus hijos, mujeres que vivimos, yo por ejemplo vivo sola, mujeres que a lo mejor tienen algún problema, compañeras que tienen problemas de salud serios y que han pasado por una enfermedad, pero que a pesar de esas dificultades seguimos luchando. El tema de la salud es un tema que es realmente preocupante porque la pobreza energética, aparte no solamente es en verano, no solamente es en invierno, sino que en verano también se sufre. De hecho, Brian y yo estamos aquí ahora que igual nos desintegramos porque estamos con un ventilador, porque no puedo ponerme el aire acondicionado, pero vemos cómo, de dónde sacamos esa fuerza, ¿no? Las mujeres para poder lidiar con todo lo que conlleva la lucha, ¿no? Que llevamos de APE, pero aparte de esa lucha que llevamos con APE, también tenemos una vida y tenemos una historia, ¿no? Y tenemos una lucha interna también de temas, pues como ha comentado antes Mónica, de compañeras pues, que han sufrido malos tratos, enfermedades crónicas, de salud física, pero también salud mental, y eso también a veces impide que muchas mujeres puedan realmente empoderarse y puedan conocer sus derechos por sus dificultades físicas o psíquicas que no les permite no tienen ayudas, ¿no? No tienen ayudas de fuera.
Vale. So another thing we see at the Alianza de Pobreza Energética is there's a lot of single mothers. There's people who have to take care of their couple or their loved ones, and also we see a lot of health problems. Health is a big issue. Right now we're here in the apartment, and I can't afford to put on the AC, and so we're basically melting here. We've got a little fan on us. And so we have to see where we can find strength to continue fighting. Many of the women at the APE have received bad treatment from their partners or have chronic diseases or other health problems. So it is a real struggle ahead of us.
Bueno, ya debido a todas estas dificultades personales que podamos encontrarnos, ¿no? Aparte de tener que enfrentarnos a las empresas en las que muchas veces nos acosan porque hemos generado una deuda y no la podemos pagar, y eso te crea pues como genera mucha angustia, genera miedo. El hecho de que se haya creado un grupo de apoyo mutuo, ¿no? Para que podamos entre nosotras expresar, acompañarnos, ¿no? Y darnos calor y darnos apoyo fuera de lo que es la lucha APE, y poder hablar entre nosotras y poder desahogarnos de alguna forma cómo nos sentimos, ¿no? Hacemos de psicólogas, entre comillas, aunque no lo seamos, pero cuando a una compañera le fallan las fuerzas, le flaquean, o vemos pues, que está en un momento más delicado, pues siempre hay otra compañera y siempre estamos ahí para apoyarnos, ¿no? Creo que eso es súper importante. Este grupo ha sido vital para no sentirnos solas, para no sentirnos marginadas, porque el hecho de vivir en una situación pues, precaria, eso también hace que tú también pues, sin querer, ¿no? Te vayas recluyendo y te vayas alejando, ¿no? Y solamente quieres relacionarte con personas que están viviendo tu misma situación porque la sociedad es injusta y te juzga muchas veces.
So despite all these problems, even despite all these other problems, on top of it all, we have to fight the companies who are also, in many cases, they're harassing us, sending us harassing us with lawyers and things like this. And so it's been very important to find a group where we can, where we can help each other, where we can give each other mutual aid, to listen to each other, to be each other's psychologists in some cases, And this group is so important so that you can get out of your solitude and together we can face these other injustices.
Okay. Bueno, de hecho, es un dato, ¿no?, curioso, es como una anécdota que quiero. De hecho, cuando hacemos el espacio de apoyo mutuo, en el que la mayoría somos mujeres, si a lo mejor en esa tarde pues, nos hemos conectado cinco compañeras, 4 somos mujeres y 1 es un hombre. Y cuando preguntamos y hablamos de cómo nos sentimos en ese momento, cómo estamos viviendo este mes o esa semana o qué nos ha pasado, todas tenemos algo que contar, todas acabamos llorando, dándonos un abrazo virtual porque no podemos abrazarnos físicamente. Y cuando le preguntas al compañero, bueno, ¿y tú cómo estás? Bueno, yo bien, O sea, quiero decir que de 5 personas, 4 somos mujeres que estamos viviendo situaciones muy, muy duras, muy complicadas, que nuestra salud se agrava y que a veces, evidentemente, la lucha con APE para mí es un orgullo porque a mí me ha empoderado y creo que es la palabra clave y lo que define a la Alianza contra la Pobreza Energética, y lo digo en mayúsculas: empoderamiento, fuerza, el no rendirnos, el estar siempre unidas, el estar juntas, el ir todas a una y hacer una piña y luchar por nuestros derechos, porque muchas veces los desconocemos y no sabemos que los tenemos, ¿no? Y entonces eso juega en ventaja con las compañías para que nos maltraten y abusen de la manera que lo están haciendo.
So in the space of mutual aid that we have on Wednesdays, oftentimes we see that it's mostly women. In fact, you know, you'll see, for example, there'll be three out of 4 of the people will be women, and we ask how we're doing. We listen to each other. We give each other virtual hugs. We can't do it in person, and we often wind up crying. And we ask the men, you know, how are they doing? They say, oh, you know, we're doing okay. So, you know, we really see that the women are the most affected. And the APE has, more than anything, I think the word that best describes what it's meant to me is it's been empowering. It's just the key, and so this is what we're doing. We're fighting for our rights and you know, recovering our ability to keep on the struggle.
Yeah, I think Marie-Carmen, maybe one round more, and then is that fine for you? So
just one, un poquito más y luego.
Vale. Vale, bueno, pues sí. Bueno, algo que me gustaría recalcar es cómo poder, bueno, algo que nos planteamos en APE es cómo generar más inclusión en los asesoramientos, ¿no? Esto, bueno, es en la que haya diversidad de personas, o sea, todo el mundo es bien recibido, no hay un género específico, origen, capacidades específicas, no, o sea, todas podemos y tenemos algo que aportar en la Alianza contra la Pobreza Energética. O sea, es la medida que se pueda colaborar y luchar contra este oligopolio, ¿no?, que tenemos con estos grandes monstruos que nos están ahogando. Y esto, la única manera es uniéndonos y bueno, pues estando empoderadas y sobre todo teniendo en cuenta que lo que estamos pidiendo es un derecho básico y es fundamental, que es el derecho a la energía y el poder tener una calidad de vida digna tanto en invierno como en verano, porque también se enferma en verano.
So one of the questions we ask ourselves at the APE is how to create more inclusion, how to make sure that that everyone feels welcome, that everyone can participate. You know, and we really try to make sure that there's no specific capacity of or aspect that someone needs to have. But you know, we want everyone to join this fight, because it's so important to really, you know, face up to this oligopoly that's and make sure that that's really a monster, and to make sure that everyone has a right to energy.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you so much, Marie-Carmen and Brian. So it was for sharing your perspective, for sharing how you are affected, also your fight. I think that's really great. So to show that you can do something, so you come together, you have mutual aid, so you can do something against the big companies, for example, that it's so important to see. Thanks again for sharing it and for having you here. And yeah, we go ahead with our program, and in the discussion part, I guess there will be many questions also. Great. We are a bit delayed, but I think it's still fine. We have again a Slido poll. And we ask you again to go to Slido, and we have a poll where you can choose. And the question is, now we have heard from Monica, from Mari-Carmen, what can be done, what approaches you are proposing or already using for engaging women in tackling summertime energy poverty. So we have heard some ideas, and here we propose gender-sensitive communication. Next is communication through women channels or groups, securing childcare to allow for carefree engagement of women, or securing safe spaces at meetings, for example, via awareness persons or skilled facilitation. So what do you think? What are good concepts to engage women to tackle summertime energy poverty? So take some seconds. So far, don't see any votes.
Would it be possible for that person to put it on full screen so we could read what's written?
Yeah. So you can, yes. Is it possible, Alfonso? Or you can, for example, tag it if you use with a mouse. So you can tag it. But yeah, it works for you. Great. So I see this, there are no votes. Is that okay? No. Yeah, takes a bit time. Yeah. So it seems to be very obvious, for example, what you mentioned, Mari-Carmen, and also Monica, it's securing safe space to be really sure to be without discrimination, to have skilled facilitation. Everybody can speak up, for example, that's very important. And also to have a targeted communication via channels. Okay, so yes, so, and also securing childcare. Great. Thank you so much for including your input. That's really great. And we go ahead. Now we get input from Albania. So we are happy to have you here, Valbona, from Albania, from Milieukontakt. You are Executive Director, and you have very long-standing expertise on energy poverty, sustainable development, ecotourism, public participation. Valbona is also a partner in the Empower Me project, and she will share a presentation on challenges of summer energy poverty among vulnerable groups. And Valbona, you have 5 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Katerina. And yes, I'd like to present, let's say, some of the findings and results from the project in Albania, and especially for the vulnerable group as it is the Roma community. Vlora is the pilot site where we are working. It's, let's say, a municipality of around 200,000 inhabitants, but less than 60% are residents. The others are like second houses, or let's say houses that are still not used. I mean, not livable. Nevertheless, in one of the units that we have been working, especially in the beginning, trying to identify people's living on energy poverty, and also making a visit at their houses and help with the advice, it was in Novosela. And in the next slides, I have brought two cases of a woman and a man that are from the Roma community and the way they are living. I mean, Roma community in that special area of Novosela is 85%, let's say, that live in the houses with problems. Usually they are in big communities, so big size of families, more than 5 persons, and they live in a very small amount, which usually comes as a social assistance, somehow around 70 euro per month, having in mind that both parents are jobless and they try to get this amount. And out of it, of course, debts that they do have to the electricity utility company is higher, and sometimes they have been cut off from the grid. And in case they'd like to be again linked to the grid, they need to prepare a debtness, let's say, plan with clear timetable where they are paying all their debts. Also, the Roma community, they are people that usually are moving all around. They do not have a stable house. And you can go at the next slide, please. And as such, they also have somehow not accurate. I mean, the municipality has not accurate figures and statistics on number, on their incomes, or on their, let's say, if they are jobless or not. And sometimes it is hard also to find out at the health sector, for example, how many of them do have also a kind of regular visiting. But talking with the public health sector, we found out that also Roma community in Novosela has the highest number of visits. So 1/3 of the visits during the day are coming from Roma community, and usually children of the age 3 to 5 years old, which shows clearly the conditions that they are living in. If we go to the next slide, I'd like to bring some of the problems that the Roma community have, except of what have been mentioned prior, but not having a fixed house, fixed, let's say, settlement. So they don't have a proper house, and as such, they cannot have also a contract with the electricity company. So they are somehow not. I mean, they cannot even have the fundamental rights of living in not only in a decent house, but also of having all the other activities. And if we go, for example, to during the COVID time, the situation, it has been even worse, because children usually, not only children, but all those pupils, students were having online session, and for those families that do not have even electricity, it was hard to have adequate then education at all. And these were some of the cases that also we brought to the Commissioner Against Discrimination as cases that they can start to argue with the public electricity company.
One more minute, Valbona.
Yes. And trying to, solve somehow to address their, let's say, problem. What else we have been doing? It is with health practitioners, because as they are the first, let's say, door where usually people from Roma community try to take at least, let's say, medical visits. This might be a good case for them to identify people on energy poverty, but also to provide some small advices for them. And last but not the least, we have been trying to work with the local authorities and try to seek and enter into the program of social housing more people from this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Valbona, for being on time. That's really great. I know how difficult this is because you have a lot to tell also. That's great. So also to see, to work with different, so to have this target group, what is very difficult, and also to work with municipalities, with health practitioners. So we have solutions, and that's really a very positive example also what you have done. Yeah, so we go ahead, and also dear audience, please put your questions in Slido if you have any. And we go ahead with Carmen. So it's a positive is to work on topics like energy poverty. It's also a community. So we did also already some webinars together with the project Kulturreis with Carmen. That's also positive because we see so very positive approaches from what you are doing, Carmen, as an architect, as a researcher at the Technical University of Madrid, focusing with your research on energy poverty, and also presenting here the project Kulturreis with the topic training and increasing of skills of EU citizens to fight summertime energy poverty. So, Carmen, you also have 8 minutes.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation. I have a presentation. I don't know because I cannot see it in the screen. Yeah, here we are. Well, what I'm going to present, I will keep on telling you to pass the slides. Is the project Kulturreis. You can pass the slide. The project Kulturreis, we are coordinating from the Technical University of Madrid, and the aim of this project is to reduce, as it says there, the incidence of summer energy poverty among European households, improving their indoor thermal conditions and reducing energy bills, and of course decreasing their exposure to extreme heat. Next, please. Basically, we had to create a common framework on this definition because it's quite new. I have to say that this is the first project specifically funded by the European Commission focused on summer energy poverty. So we needed to know what was going on in the rest of the countries. And we have defined solutions. We have trained summer energy poverty agents, and we are reaching more than 7,200 people. And of course, that's why we are here. We try to integrate the gender perspective within the project because our previous project had demonstrated there's also some inequalities related to gender when we talk about energy poverty. Next. Well, very briefly, we are a group of partners, as you can see, from the Mediterranean arc, affected by extreme temperatures during summer, and of course, affected of summertime energy poverty. Next. So what are we doing? And I'm going to focus on the activities and the proposals we are doing. We have energy bills. Well, we are conducting workshops focused on energy bills, but also focused on heat culture. We can pass the slide because we have some pictures in here. Next, please. Next. Yes, we have some workshops, and as you can see there, there's a majority of women participating in these workshops. I would like to highlight this summertime energy culture, which is quite brand new. We know from our colleagues from the field of epidemiology that what is called the heat culture, something very typical in southern countries, to how to protect from heat has very positive impacts on people's health. So that's what we are promoting. Next. So we prepared, and you can find this information in our website, which is more or less under construction, but you will have all this information. These are a lot of documentation on how to prevent indoor internal heats to help households to reduce their internal heats. And next, sorry, because I see it's not perfectly clear, but you can download these documents, and also a lot of a repository of solutions on how to protect, how to use blinds, how to protect from solar radiation. Because what we detected, I have to insist that we are from the technical university, we are architects, and our main goal is generally intervening in what is built. So sometimes there's a lack of knowledge from the technical perspective on how to cope, like basic knowledge on thermal performance. So that's what we are basically adding to this project. So you can have all these solutions on how to protect from heat. And next, I have to say that it's something very important, is that the approach is not like we are the experts and we are here to tell you what you have to do, but we always try to get the knowledge of the audience attending to the workshops, and then from that knowledge, because there's a lot of knowledge in the population, from there completing the gaps we detect. We also work with them detecting spaces in their neighborhood. This is something very new we are incorporating in this project. Like when we talk about summertime energy poverty, we need to think beyond the limits of the house, which is something very different in the approach with winter energy poverty. Next. Well, I'll speak about that later on. And this is one of our gender strategies in the project, which is offering playgrounds for kids, what we call cool kids. So we can facilitate their moms to participate in these workshops. We also allow them to stay, of course, with their babies, or we try to schedule the workshops during times in which children are at school. So, but we are very sensitive to that. Next. And something very quite new, I think, we are doing collective interventions in the public space to generate small climatic shelters, because people tend to live in small houses, and during the extreme weather events, and especially during night times, their houses are extremely overheated. So we try, and you can next, because I think the video, you can see it. Oh no, sorry. We are doing these collective interventions with neighbors, planting trees, incorporating some shadowing. We do as well co-creating sessions with them, because they know the space they live in, they know their neighbors, so they know what they need and how they tend to use these kind of spaces. We generally work with associations already working and already using a space, so we help them to make this more comfortable. And so these are some panels of this co-creation process. And also, as we are, at least here in Madrid, we are training architecture students. They work with these neighbors, but in other countries, there are other some energy poverty agents, and they also work with neighbors to co-design the space and to create climatic shelters.
One more minute, Carmen.
Okay, perfect. Next. Yeah, and here you have like the repository of solutions, possible heat sources we have in the city regarding, the air conditioning, facades with dark colors, etc. And then next, we have a repository of solutions. Next, please. Well, hopefully you will be able to download this information from our website. And finally, what we are creating is a heat wave alarm system in which we are all households participating in our activities. They can register within an easy WhatsApp mobile system, or well, depending on the countries, I has to say there are different platforms. But when we are approaching a heat wave event, we give them some advice, like how to prevent the exposure from heat. And next. Yeah, and this is the battery of solutions we are deploying in the project, and you maybe not now, but you will be able to easily download all these materials from Culturize website. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carmen, for this great overview and also this broadness of the approach of Culturize, so to have very concrete measures to develop also like summertime energy culture, which is very nice, which is a very nice narrative also. And what you have mentioned, that's completely different to wintertime energy poverty. Things that, and also to see that the tools and measures that can be downloaded and they can be implemented by everyone. And also the concept of not having an expert and beneficiaries, but really cooperating on eye level, which is also this great concept in Barcelona, what we have heard, and also empowerment. Great. Yes, we go ahead. So great input. And so we continue with Lydia. Lydia is the coordinator of the EmpowerMed project from Focus, Slovenia. And she is experienced and expert on sustainable development, climate, energy, transport, consumption, participation, degrowth, global responsibility, also the big picture. And as I mentioned, coordinating the EmpowerMe project and give a presentation on policy recommendations for prioritizing women in tackling summertime energy poverty and just transition. So Lydia, also 8 minutes.
Thank you very much, Katerina. Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be with you today. As you heard already several times, we're implementing this Horizon 2020 project called Empowerment. Already Monica and Valbona presented some of the activities in the field, in the pilot sites. So I'm not going to talk so much about the project itself. I just wanted to say that based on our practical activities in the pilots, we compiled some policy recommendations, and I would like to briefly present those recommendations today. If we can move to the next slide. I would like to start with our recommendations about summertime energy poverty. The first is that summertime energy poverty needs to receive more emphasis in the debate of energy poverty. Namely, we're discussing more about winter energy poverty, but we should put summer energy poverty on equal footing and start to discuss it and start to address it more in the discussions. Our climate adaptation plans need to embrace also summer energy poverty. Namely, at the moment we're missing this aspect from the climate adaptation plans, and this should be upgraded, or this should be corrected. Then we should also address summertime energy poverty in our spatial and urban interventions. We should definitely make more green areas in urban areas, because these areas are helping people to have a place where they can, so to say, escape from the problems of summertime energy poverty. And at the same time, these spaces can make our atmosphere, at least locally, a little bit cooler. So in the urban planning, we need to ensure more place for green areas, for shaded areas and trees. We should also look into employing accessible low-tech solutions and passive cooling techniques. Of course, when there is no other answer, we should use air conditioning. But prior to using air conditioning, we should really explore what other options there are, such as shading, water cooling, ventilation, and so on. Just to make sure that we can avoid air conditioning as much as possible, because it's not only wrecking our climate, but also putting too much stress on our energy systems. Finally, our recommendation is to engage renewable energy sources when tackling summertime energy poverty, to ensure that we can tackle it in a more sustainable manner. Next slide, please. In terms of gender and energy poverty, our first recommendation is that energy poverty definition should take gender and intersectional aspects into account. We should raise awareness about gender and intersectional factors in the energy poverty, because at the moment they're still not so present, and also they're definitely not analyzed and researched enough. This is calling for collecting segregated data with also the intersectional perspective, like the data disaggregated by intersectional perspective. We should also engender our energy poverty indicators, and whenever possible, give positive prioritization or positive discrimination to women in training and jobs related to our green energy transition, so to jobs in renovation, jobs in renewables, and so on. The next slide, please. When it comes to health, because I'm going to very briefly mention health because it's also one of the cross-cutting aspects of empowerment. So when it comes to health, we call for more research and improved recognition between of the links between energy poverty and health. We should definitely make mental health more of an visible issue within energy poverty, because at the moment we're still focusing too much on the physical health, but the mental health problems are very much present in energy poverty problem. We should also look in areas where coal and wood and biomass are used for heating into the issue of indoor air quality to ensure that households can have sufficiently good quality of air indoor. And finally, we need to increase the involvement and awareness of frontline healthcare workers in tackling energy poverty by providing them with know-how on how to appoint people to the institutions and programs that can help them to tackle energy poverty. And my final slide is to talk about wider framework of the energy poverty, of going beyond this triad of low income, poor energy efficiency of buildings, and high energy prices. So going more towards the just transition, we discovered in empowerment that we really need to tackle energy poverty through integrated policies, because if we're doing with one policy one thing and with another policy we're destroying it, we're not doing much. So we have to look at definitely at better, fair, and fairly paid jobs in the energy transition. We have to look into legally binding ban on disconnections. We have to look for mechanisms to financially support the vulnerable citizens. We definitely have to look into the housing issues. At the moment, housing issues are becoming more of a challenge, especially in the Mediterranean area, where the housing is clashing with the needs of tourists for accommodation. So yeah, making housing accessible is one very important field. Then, as I already mentioned, protecting women from the rising costs and pay gaps should be one of the priorities. Generally, we need to empower citizens to act, which we showed with empowerment that it can be done. And we should take the revision of the national energy and climate plans as an opportunity to put all these changes in place and bring all this comprehensive policy picture in place, and not only the energy poverty picture. Finally, also the criteria for the financing of EU projects linked to energy poverty should perhaps be reconsidered, because at the moment we're looking at energy savings in the projects, and sometimes or very often with energy poverty we cannot achieve energy savings. Rather, we have to advise people to increase their energy consumption to be able to have a proper well-being. So yeah, that would be in brief everything, but on the website you can find the whole set of the recommendations, and I would call upon checking these recommendations and reviewing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lydia. So it's great to have also this bigger picture and to see what needs to be included also for coherent policy. that's also the topic now. We go on the European level, and well, we are delayed. I know, I apologize for it, but we have time for your question, but all your input is so valuable. So it's very difficult to stop you. But we have, of course, time for you. Teresa Aristegui from DG Energy, welcome. So Teresa is Policy Officer at DG Energy since 2019, following the energy poverty file, and contributes also both to the just transition and to the consumers team in the energy unit. So Teresa will talk about the EU framework for tackling summertime energy poverty and engaging women. So Teresa, 8 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Katharina. So maybe to adapt a bit the presentation, given the amount of time we have. First of all, my colleague Veronique Marx, my team leader, so my boss, was meant to be here today, but she would have loved to. And at least I think I can come in to explain to you how I have perceived the evolution of this very important topic of energy poverty since 2019. So maybe before going into the presentation, the messages that the Commission wants to transmit in this very important panel is basically the facts that extreme heat peaks, droughts, and wildfire over summer is definitely becoming the new normal in Europe. It is affecting more European countries than 2 to 3 decades ago. And this information comes from the European State of Climate of last year. Maybe you know about this this survey. It is compiled by the Copernicus Climate Change Service, implemented by the European Centre for Medium Range Weather Forecasts and also with the Commission. And really the main message for us in this discussion around summer energy poverty is that buildings are really the response in this sense. I mean, buildings must be designed, must be adapted in a way that they're able to protect not only against cold temperatures over winter, but also against hot waves in the summer. So with what we have proposed in legislation, but also in our policy framework, as you know, also the renovation wave was put forward 3 years ago. For us, buildings must absolutely, or more the concept, I would say, of and the calculation of energy performance for buildings have to take fully into account cooling needs. And also for us, a very important thing to take into account whenever we design policy is the local context. So I think all of the things we have been able to listen to today are testament to this reality. Of course, the core instrument that we have at EU level is the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. And there are quite a few elements there which are super important to make this problem of summer energy poverty be something that is tackled appropriately. And I wanted to, for example, refer to the fact that in the proposal that is now being negotiated, there is a specific requirement that healthy indoor climate conditions are taken into account in the methodology to calculate the energy performance of buildings. So this is for us a very important step forward. And what else can I say about this more concretely? I think that you have to look also, if you can maybe go forward with the slides, just to refer to maybe the Energy Efficiency Directive also, which is a super important instrument that goes together with the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. We have for the first time a newly adopted EU definition for energy poverty, which refers explicitly to access to essential energy services that provide basic levels and decent standards of living, and also refers explicitly to health, including cooling. And also it refers to the national context and the combination of factors that can cause energy poverty. So in the EU policy jargon, we always talk about the energy poverty triangle of causes. And for us, it was very important to make sure that we could secure at least 3 of them. So high energy expenditure, low income, and low energy efficiency. that it has to be the baseline in order to identify and then act on ways that we can, to actually tackle and reduce energy poverty. If we go to the next slide very quickly, also in the Energy Efficiency Directive, there's been a huge jump in the responsibilities for member states to tackle energy poverty. So member states have a responsibility to diagnose the number of energy poor in the territory, identify whether measures to address energy poverty are actually fit for purpose. They have to be adapted every so often. And Lydia mentioned the importance of the national energy and climate plans. For the EU level, this is the document, the policy tool that we have to really engage with member states and see that they are adapting to the different realities, to the different needs. And so we had a first set of plans delivered to us in 2020. Of course, a million things have happened since then. The crisis has been a huge hit for so many households. Energy poverty, in a way, also, unfortunately, thanks to that, is becoming much more of a policy focus of member states. So we're really excited to see what is coming in the revision of these plans that are due in the summer. So maybe if it's the summer period, we can see some more references to summer cooling. This might be a possibility, but we really hear the recommendations that I have heard in this session. And I think maybe given the time limit, the rest, I think if you can please move to the next slide, just gives a bit of again an overview of the legal framework. These slides I'm very happy to share with the participants to have accessible kind of the main ideas. But I think I wanted to really use my intervention to wrap up a bit the things that have been said in this session and how the Commission also perceives it, basically. So I think it cannot be underestimated. High energy prices have been excruciating for all of us. I think we can say that this is where energy poverty needs to become very well targeted. They are here to stay for a bit more, so we cannot, at least from the Brussels perspective, we stay very much in this crisis mode to be able to be ready whenever things get really bad again. So this is something that was good to hear in the panel. I noted down the number mentioned by Catarina on the fact that 1 in 5 households cannot keep their homes adequately cool in the summer. On this one, I wanted to mention that there will be a new indicator set specifically for cooling for this year. It's an ad hoc module prepared by Eurostat. So this also shows that already 2 years ago in the Commission, we were pushing for this to be more, let's say, prevalent in the indicator database for energy poverty, and we take note, of course, of the reported causes of summertime energy poverty in the Slido. Really, it has been excellent to hear the variety of projects. The Barcelona Mutual Support Health Group is something we have been following very closely, actually, lately. The Vlora pilot site as well. Thank you very much, Valbona, for sharing that one. And really hearing about the testimony. So also with Mari Carmen, I think it really helps for anyone to understand the issue when these real cases are put forward. It's also a good moment because the Commission will be soon making available a new recommendation on energy poverty. I know that some of you in this panel are aware of the discussions. So for us, engaging with stakeholders is becoming more and more common. We wanted to take that step with regard to the previous recommendation, and being able to listen to these projects is extremely helpful. It's also very inspiring being from Madrid, actually, to hear about the Cool to Rise project. So it's really great, Carmen, that you were able to explain it to us, and I think it can make it really into the recommendation as part of the best practices that are quite innovative with regard to what we have seen until now. So this is also very well noted. And on the gender aspect, maybe, I'm looking at Catarina to see if I have enough time to continue. The Commission is obviously
1 minute.
1 minute, perfect. Then I finish on this one. We always very much support the idea of having a gender-sensitive approach to energy poverty, but we always do explain that it is already taken into account for years now in that broader framework of a series of complex, very interlinked and multifaceted causes of energy poverty. So it is really about the socio-demographic factors. It is looking at income in as many ranges as possible to capture, because looking at income quintiles can be different in Romania to Spain. It can be different in the Netherlands to Greece. So this is something where we have to adapt the measurements in each case. And then in general, yes, housing, labor, economic policy, and welfare, all of these things together have to be taken into account. And of course, engaging women is fundamental. And it's really great to see that things are really happening now in this direction. So thank you very much for this great panel.
Thank you very much, Teresa, for your input and also to share the perspective of the European Commission. That's so super important and great to hear that it's even more stakeholder consultation, so to include all the results, the experience we gain, for example, what we see, the examples of Marie Carmen, of the projects. I think it's so super valuable also for the policy to be included. And we also, of course, we appreciate, because I am far away from Brussels, and I guess it's really difficult to include many dimensions in the directives. And so we have achieved a lot. So sorry again for the delay. Now we have some questions, and thank you very much again to you panelists. I think it was really so interesting, so diverse, so many dimensions. And I think it's super important to be prepared, to act proactive, so not to talk about summertime energy poverty when we experience high temperatures, and in autumn again, winter energy poverty. I think that is what maybe an important takeaway. But let's go to the questions and see. Here are some questions to use the last minutes. So there is one question. It's maybe linked to your input, Teresa. What can be done to prioritize women in EU energy and energy poverty policies, but to include social justice and gender dimensions in the framework? What you mentioned, for example, in the Building Directive, Renewable Directive, and Energy Efficiency Directive. Maybe one additional comment on that?
Sure. No, I think, I could go on and on about the legal framework and what we have in place. It's one of the things that, you have the Energy Efficiency Directive, you have the Performance of Buildings Directive. I forgot to mention the importance of the Social Climate Fund. And maybe I can start with that, because this first ever instrument, financial instrument put forward by the Commission using ETS revenues, has been put forward to really specifically target energy poverty through energy efficiency and building renovation. We are telling member states to really connect their social climate plans to the national energy and climate plans. Everything has to be coherent for member states to be able to receive funding. And if you go into the Social Climate Fund, for example, instrument, into the regulation, in the text, you will see in the recitals a clear reference to gender. So this is just an example of how member states will need to follow this. They will have to take into account to show us at least whether this is something they are doing in the member state. And we are in the process now internally of producing guidance for member states to really fill in these plans in the best possible way, a bit like was done for the recovery and resilience plans. We are a bit borrowing this framework to make it easy for member states to do this. So that's an example of how this can be done, how women could be prioritized. And then I wanted to make a reference even to things we do in the Directorate-General for Energy. In the Department of Energy of the Commission, we have also a energy women in energy sort of network. And I think that's a very, very encouraging thing to see, because we are, many of us in the Commission, in this Directorate-General, we are policy officers, and we really feel for all of these stories, and we contribute to energy poverty, for example, policy. I think that's one example among many of how we can make gender disaggregation of data, gender-sensitive approaches to policymaking really a reality. So, yeah, this would be my reply.
Thank you very much. So any comment from other panelists here on this question on EU policies? Not at the moment. So I would go ahead because there is a concrete question for Marie Carmen. And so I think it is a question. It's about what kind of measures you need or to promote women's empowerment at European level in the context of the energy crisis for you. And there is another question for you is what you need, Marie Carmen, so to go ahead, so to fight against energy poverty with your partners, with your cooperations. Is the question clear?
Can you repeat it?
Yeah. So the first question, I hope maybe it's already in Spanish. So it's what kind of legislative measures should be implemented to promote women's empowerment at European level in the context of the energy crisis. So what do you have any ideas, for example? What could be upscaled, what you know from Barcelona or Spain? That's one point. If you would like to answer it, then the second is what do you need additionally? What kind of network, what kind of information, what kind of training or support do you need to go ahead with your very inspiring and successful work to face energy poverty? So maybe, yeah, so Monica would answer the first one. Is that okay? And Marie Carmen, you would go ahead.
Sí, puedo responder la primera, que es más sobre medidas legislativas. I can answer the first one on legislative measures at EU level, because precisely what we have seen is that women are more affected by energy poverty. All measures that are, let's say, at the most advanced measures in the world in protecting the right to energy are going to protect a lot of women. So, for example, the inclusion of the ban on disconnections in the process of reform of the electricity market at EU level is going to affect positively lots of women, and we have already seen that in Catalonia with the ban on disconnections with the law 24/2015. So we don't need to think all the time on measures affecting women, but if we are having measures that protect in a very good way and are very protective and not only exceptions but protect widely, we are going to protect women. And then, of course, we need to follow all the indicators with those data to correct any mistakes we can make many times with policies that sometimes it doesn't work as we expected. So we need mechanisms of following up to see if all these measures are functioning in a good way. Indicators and data segregated, as it has been mentioned many times, and of course all that includes several axes of inequality, so gender and ethnicity, gender and disability, gender and single parent families, or women, elderly women living alone. Those kind of particular aspects can be included in some of the measures, for example, when presenting new social tariffs or discounts. This can be taken into account as well. So things like this would help a lot.
Thank you very much, Monica. That's great. And yeah, for this overview, what could be done here on this level. And maybe Marie Carmen, if you would like to answer the question, what you would need, for example, if so you you work successfully in your network, so you fight against energy poverty, you are able to to react to the big companies writing harassing letters, for example. Do you have any ideas what you would need additionally? I think now you have a good network, but what kind of information, what kind of support, what kind of network would be helpful to continue your successful work and engagement?
A ver, no termino de entender muy bien la pregunta, pero yo creo, si me dices qué tipo de apoyo o de red podemos tener para continuar la lucha desde APE, ¿no? Lo que ya estamos haciendo. ¿Es así? Mónica, ¿me estás...?
So I'm not sure I understand the question. I'm just wondering if you're asking me, like, what do we need from who and in what way to continue our struggle?
Well, it's a very open question, so I have to admit it's a difficult one, but maybe it's a support from the local level, it's a support from state level, it could be maybe some relief from the energy company, for example, just any idea what would help you? So a very open question. What kind of support could help you, your network, to continue your work, so to also to support other families? If you have any ideas, yeah.
Bueno, evidentemente el hecho de que sean empresas privadas las que estén monopolizando los derechos básicos, ¿no? Como son la energía y el agua, evidentemente esto no facilita tampoco las cosas.
The fact that there are private companies that are basically, you know, in charge of the energy is one of the biggest obstacles we have facing in our struggle.
O sea, una lucha que tenemos desde APE es que sea también, pues que no sean empresas privadas las que estén lucrándose de unos derechos, repito, básicos y fundamentales para el ser humano, ¿no?
So one of the biggest problems is that these private companies are basically for-profit industries are taking advantage of the public, and of course, you know, this is causing more problems than it's solving.
Y importante es seguir organizándonos, que haya movimientos como APE y que la gente que está teniendo problemas para poder tener suministros garantizados, evidentemente que se sume a la lucha que llevamos pues desde 2014 en APE.
Yeah, and so in our struggle for this basic right, we just want to make sure that, you know, people can continue coming to meeting groups and meetings like the APE, so that they can get support and help us continue this struggle.
Y voluntad política, y termino, voluntad política evidentemente para que haya un cambio y sobre todo también por parte de las compañías, que son las que nos lo están poniendo realmente difícil.
And so there really needs to be a political will to basically, you know, stand up to the companies, and also the companies themselves need to take these things into account.
Yeah, thank you. So it's a big issue of our energy market, so that we have energy companies which are privatized and they have the aim to maximize the profit, for example. So thank you very much for this input, Mari-Carmen and Brian. So I would come to our last question and I would ask all of you maybe with a very short answer, because now we have seen our approaches, we have really seen that we have really good tools, we have knowledge, we know how to communicate, how to raise awareness. What can we do to upscale and to mainstream such good examples like from Mari-Carmen, from Barcelona, from Culturize, from EmpowerMeet? Maybe really super short answers. Please go ahead, dear panelists. We have 2 minutes. Any ideas? So to travel to Brussels, to convince the policymakers, yep. So I think, but
if I may, I'm sorry, my camera somehow decided that it's too hot for it and stopped working, so affected by the heat. But anyhow, I would say that advancing European projects that are enabling this.
As we heard, Culturize is the first European project to specifically work on summertime energy power. I think there should be more, but not only European project. I think it's also very important that we have local support, that local authorities are recognizing the issue and starting to develop local adjustment and adaptation plans so that they can tackle summertime energy poverty in their locality. Thank you.
Thank you. And Teresa?
Just before I disconnect, again, thank you so much for the very good session. I can only encourage, coming from Brussels, that as many local actors, as many activists, as many project managers really contact the local, but importantly also the ministries. And I know in Spain, for example, there is the Estrategia Nacional contra la Pobreza Energética. So the MIPECO, these are really the people that can see through projects that will then get the funding at EU level. So this is the bridge that it's the best way, let's say, to see the new things and the more effective techniques to be actually reflected in the plans at EU level. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And last comment from Carmen.
Yeah, before Teresa leaves, I would add for us the way we draft directives are extremely important. What are the directives talking about? Are they talking about thermal comfort? Are they talking about kilowatts of primary energy saved? And this is crucial because this type of, how you call it, is finally the way it ends up. And I always like to say, we don't know if we live in an A certificated building. We do not know how many hours will it provide of thermal comfort during summer or during winter. So this is how to scale that. The way is changing drafting directives, because afterwards all technicians and all local translation of these laws will put the pressure in different things, in CO2 emissions or in thermal comfort. So
thank you very much, Carmen. So very specific point. Yeah, but at this point, I would like to thank to your great panelists. Thank you very much for your valuable input. I think it was really a great overview. It was shown by many perspectives that it's such a relevant and important topic. So we have to go ahead. So we need solutions. It needs to be a continuous process to include it in policies, to upscale activities. Thank you so much, dear audience, for the interest. It's recorded, so you can watch it again. I guess the presentations can be shared. We will check it with presentators. And so thank you very much. Let's go ahead with our engagement, with our effort, with our tools and ideas in future projects, in policies and activities. And yeah, and also thank to Alfonso, to the technical support. Now we are 2 minutes late. That's great, I hope. And I wish you all a nice evening. I wish you a nice summer, not too many heat waves, and good techniques and measures to face with heat waves and too high temperatures, and hope to see you soon and in person in further and future projects. All the best and greeting to whole Europe, wherever you are. Have a nice evening and thank you so much.
Thank you, bye.